can tell me none. Boss mode in effect and my money long. If you ain't talking money, don't talk to me. I be over here. Music.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 31 of Paranormal Addicts Podcast. Our guest, as always, I'm Kent, your host and producer. I wear many hats, and we got our co-host Chris with us today. Say hi, Chris.
Hello.
And then our guest today is Joe. Joe, let's just start out with you introducing yourself to everybody, and then we'll get rolling.
Well, thanks, Joe Franke. I've
Frozen.
been investigating paranormal for 40 years now. I was one of the students of Ed and Lorraine Warren from the I joined them in 1986. Can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We hear you.
So,
Yep.
I've been doing this for quite some time. I'm the board chair for the Warren Legacy Foundation and chief investigative officer. So, yeah, I've pretty much been around for 4 decades.
I always enjoy meetings. I always enjoy meeting somebody who's investigated it longer than I have. I'm kind of an OG in the field myself. Chris reminds me of that all the time. I've been investigating for 32 years. I started investigating in 1992. So actually, Anne Lorraine's one of their books was the first book that I ever read on paranormal investigating. I read it when I was 14. So yeah, that's kind of got me my start. So
yeah.
All right. So since you have been doing it. Since you have been doing this so long, let's start out with this question: what's the difference you see in the field nowadays compared to when you first got into it?
Well, for me personally, it's education. I was fortunate that I worked and studied alongside Ed and Lorraine Warren when I was a kid. I mean, I met them when I was 18 years old, and today, most people's claim to fame as far as education is watching television shows or YouTube channels, and unfortunately that's not the way to go. So what I try to do and what we do as a foundation is I try to educate people. My target audience is the up and coming investigators in the field today and the researchers. I certainly don't know everything, but like I said, I've been doing this for 4 decades. I like to share my thoughts and my insight on proper investigative techniques, and then people could take what I teach them and put their own spin on it. I mean, like I said, I'm not the end all be all, but there are certain ways that you should investigate, and the main thing is to make sure you properly protect yourself. I studied demonology with Ed Warren. I worked on quite a few demonic cases. If I never get another one as long as I live, I'll be happy. But if you're not careful when you're investigating, you can open doors. We call them doorways to the demonic. And that's not something that you want to be involved in. You have to be careful with things like Ouija and seances and witchcraft and crystal balls and all that kind of stuff. Even using or having an EVP set can be dangerous because you're looking to form a relationship with the unknown. You're speaking out into the unknown, saying, "Hey, if there's anything here that wants to communicate with me," things like that. That can be very dangerous. I'm not saying that the people that have done it are going to have a problem, but why roll the dice? Because normally if you're doing that, or if you're using a Ouija board or something like that, I have found in my 40 years of doing this is usually what's the reason to do that? You're looking something we call necromancy. You're trying to summon the dead or summon the soul of someone that has passed. Typically it's usually a loved one. You want to talk to your grandparents, your parents, whatever. But those are the people or the spirits that normally don't come through. It's usually something more dark and sinister, but demonic entities can't just attach themselves to you. They have to be invited in. To be an invitation. But by you doing stuff like this and using what I call divination practices, Ouija boards, seances, things like that, that's you opening that doorway, and you're just saying, come on in. Well, what are you letting in? And I've had people say, well, Joe, it's just the spirit of a little girl or a little boy. I said, yeah, well, that's what it wants you to believe, because it wants to gain your trust and your sympathy. So you open that door wider and you're allowing these things in. What we call an attachment. I'm sure you gents know what I'm talking about. And they call me up or they'll email me and say, Joe, can you come over and get rid of this thing? I said, it doesn't work that way. I'm not going to show up with a proton pack on my back and the mobile ecto chamber. I said, that's Hollywood. I said,
Right.
if you get an attachment because you of your own free will invited this being, this entity into your life, you're going to have to do a lot of work to get rid of it. Now, I can help you. My team can help you. We can guide you. We can support you. But like I said, I'm not going to come in there and take it out of there. You have to do the work. You have to be very strong emotionally. You need to be strong psychologically, and most of all, spiritually. You need to be very grounded. You need to be rooted in your faith, because faith is your weapon right there. And that's where people run into trouble. I just had a couple come up to me at an event that I did a few weeks ago, and they were talking to me about some occurrences that were going on in their home. And one of the questions, I looked at them, I said, how's your faith? And they looked at me and they said, we've lost our faith. I said, well, that's not good. They said whenever they're in the home, the entire family, they bicker, they fight a lot. I said, well, if you've got a negative entity, a negative force within that home, and again, these things don't take up space or time. They're there at the speed of thought. I said, but you're feeling it, right? And I said, what you need to do is come together as a family and fight it, but you need to be rooted in your faith. And I said, unfortunately, if you can't do that, or if you're unwilling to do that, or all the family members are not on the same page, there's really not much I can do for you. So I basically gave them a laundry list of homework and preparation they need to do before I'm even going to go over there, So I know that was a long-winded answer to your question, but the biggest thing that I found, just going back to your original question, is, the biggest difference between then and now is education. There's a lot of other things too, but this field is saturated with people, and most people, look, they have the kindness in their heart. They want to do the right thing. They want to help people. I get that. But if you don't protect yourself first, you can now become a victim right alongside them.
Well, I think,
and that's dangerous.
I think I think you made some good and interesting points there. Even going back to the education answer, I take pride in educating myself and my team. I'm like you. I have a heart for training the people. So any new people that come on, I want to get them under my ring and help guide them so they learn the right ways. And I'm trained. I actually have a Bible degree from Louisville Bible College, and I took demonology under Bishop Long, and I took parapsychology at West Georgia University. I educate myself in this field because I want, like you said, I want to know. I want to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons and the right way. I don't want to cause more problems by opening a portal and not closing it, or not knowing who I'm going to communicate, because especially if we're communicating with like a mimic, they're hard to figure out, because like you said, they're going to pretend to be a little girl, but they're really not a little girl. They're really something darker. So and then going to the protection thing, my team's a relatively large team for the paranormal field. We have 17 people on my team, and but one thing that we do in every investigation is before we go in, we do a prayer of protection and communication, and before we leave, we do a prayer of detachment. Because in the prayer of detachment, we let them know that they can't attach to me, my vehicle, or my equipment, and then we tell them they need to go wherever God wants them, whether that's heaven, hell, wherever. They need to go where they're supposed to be. So the protection, I think, is very important. So
Let me ask you this: Does it when you guys when you and your team go on an investigation, are you in a state of absolution or a state of grace?
yes, yes, I make sure I'm in a
Because
straight
that was
race.
vital.
Yeah, if I'm not, if me or one of my team members ain't, I mean, obviously I can control myself. So I always make sure that
Yeah.
I'm in a state of grace. No, but if we get there and one of my team members, obviously we usually meet. We usually meet at a restaurant before we go to investigation. That way I can see who's all going to show up.
Good.
So like if we meet at Wendy's, for example, and I have somebody that has a negative attitude or they're not where they're supposed to be, they either have to leave the investigation or I just reschedule the whole investigation. One of the two. So because we don't want to make a situation worse.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head there. Because if I tell people, I said, look, these beings, and I'm talking about these negative entities that never walk the earth in human form. Okay, that's an area where I excel. I've got a lot of experience, unfortunately, in that area. But I said these things have the wisdom of the ages. They know everything about you. They are your deepest, darkest sins and secrets. If you've got a sin or a soul wound, it's going to know it. And it will use that against you. I've been
I
involved in
had
exorcisms, and I remember Bishop McKenna. He would say to us, and I was just there to assist. I'm not an exorcist, but he would say, "Don't look at it. Don't acknowledge it. If it looks at you, if it says something to you, just look away and continue to pray, because you don't want to even make eye contact because you're forming a relationship. And if you've got any unabsolved sins on your soul, it's going to know it, and it's going to use that against you, and you could become a victim right along, with the afflicted person you're trying to help.
so
So
yeah. I mean
education is vital. It's vital.
on that note, I was investigating. It was a residential case in Indiana. I've talked about it a few times on the show. It's probably the closest. It was probably a demonic case. I just don't want to put that label on it, but it was definitely a non-human, malicious spirit, and it was using my childhood against me because I came from abusive, childhood, and it was using that against me to make me doubt my abilities and my. So yeah, I definitely understand that. So Damien says, I always have a full stomach and lots of Red Bull to keep energy up. Yeah, we pack energy drinks and snacks too. Because one thing I found, Joe, and I guess it could be different with every team and every location. But like you said, I've been doing this a long time too. I've been doing it for 3 decades, and that makes me sound old when I say it that way, Joe. But I've been doing this for 30 some odd years. And whenever you whenever you go to an investigation, especially like new investigators, like or trainees or whatever, they're like, "How long is the investigation going to last?" I'm like, I never put a timetable in an investigation. You have to let the spirits or whatever's there dictate. That's the reason we always make sure we have snacks and we'll rotate. We'll rotate. Like, if it's a big location, we'll rotate every hour and a half to 2 hours, and when we rotate, that's your chance to go get a snack or a drink or whatever to revitalize. Because obviously we need you in a strong. We need you to be in a strong state. We don't need you to be wore out and weak, because that's when you can get attacked. So
Exactly.
Let's go a little bit lighthearted with this next question, then we'll get back to more deeper questions. Go ahead.
I have a hard time believing in that stuff.
That's because you haven't experienced it yet, Chris. Just hope you don't experience it. Yeah. Chris is a see things before he believes it. So I'll get to your question in just a minute, Damien.
I'm my own biggest skeptic, guys. Okay? I know this stuff exists because I've lived it. But I don't blame you, Chris. If you don't believe in it, that's fine. And I hope you never have to deal with some of the things that I've dealt with or can. But I am a very big skeptic. I need to see. A lot of the cases that come across my desk are not paranormal in nature. Very small percentage of them are. It could be explained something else. A lot of it's psychosomatic. One of the first questions I ask these people that I try to help is, how many of these TV shows do you watch, or these YouTube channels, or things like that? Oh, we watch them all. We love them. Look, some of these programs are very well done. I've actually watched some of them myself, but they do not accurately depict how an investigation should be handled.
Not like
And
Zach
even Hollywood.
Bagans and
Yeah,
no.
well, yeah, that's good. That's because of 30 minutes they have to get ratings, and even the ones that are legit, even the ones that are legit, like for example, Taps when they go on a location, they're there for like 3 days, but you only see an hour on TV, so it's not going to be accurate. Yeah, and we're kind of the same way, Joe. So like if we're contacted by a family or whatever, we have a 3-step process that we go through before we, the first thing is we do a phone interview, and the phone interview is always done by me, and we actually have an actual worksheet, if that's what you want to call it, that has like the questions I ask, so so I get the answers I need. It's like how much of the history do you know with the house? Did anybody play with the Ouija board? What's your religious beliefs? And then after the phone interview, if I decide I think there might be something there, and we're able to help them, we do an in-person interview. And in the in-person interview, it's me, 2 of my team leads, and my video guy. And when we go to the in-house, it's actually the same questions on the phone interview, but it's with the whole family and any extended members that have experiences too. And while me and Jill are asking the questions, and of course we got it on the voice recorder and we got it on video, so while we're asking the questions and taking notes, the other 2 team members are actually doing a mini investigation. They're doing a baseline with the EMF, a baseline with everything to see what the baselines are. Because obviously, if there's unusual high active EMFs, that can cause all these feelings. So, we're trying to figure out what, we want to debunk anything before we look towards being paranormal. And then after we do the in-person interview, then we actually set up the investigation.
Hey,
and then
Ken.
once we do the,
Hey Ken,
and then yes,
we got some UK people in here.
yeah, I'm getting there. I'm not ignoring anybody. So
UK is very
you mentioned
UK is very haunted.
EMF. UK, yeah.
and so
Hello to my friends across the pond.
yeah, so then after we do the investigation, we'll wrap up, and then we'll review all the evidence, and then we follow up a week later with the family and know what we found, and then we continue to follow up for we don't just leave them, So so the next question is along that lines. The next question I ask this to everybody, and then after this question we'll get to Damien's question. So this is kind of an easy one too. How do you feel that the parapop culture, that's about where the parapop culture, the TV shows, the YouTubes, and all that stuff, how do you think it's affected the paranormal field, both negatively and positively? What effects do you think it's had on the field?
Well, I mean, positively, it's brought a lot of light to it. And, there are people out there that truly do have paranormal affliction, and I hope they find the help they need. There are a lot of good people like me, like yourselves, that are properly trained and equipped to be able to help those people. But adversely, there's a lot of people, and I'm not going to pick on anybody and mention names, but a lot of these people are. You mentioned Zach. Now, Zach, I met Zach many years ago. He's a very intelligent guy, but he's a showman. He does his shtick for television. And he's made a very good life out of it. And God bless him. There's nothing illegal about it. I personally find what a lot of people do immoral, because it's almost makes a mockery of what I'm trying to do. I don't have a YouTube channel. Okay, I have a personal Facebook page. That's it. People need to get a hold of me and get hold of me through the foundation. I give people my personal email, my phone number if they need help. I don't have a YouTube channel. There's a lot of good YouTubers out there. I get it, but if unless you're properly educated, I mean, going back to the education piece, that's vital. Because I mean, just to give you a quick example of what I mentioned earlier, we all know you guys are familiar with the Annabelle case, correct?
Yep.
The Annabelle doll. Okay.
I
Now,
met Annabelle.
I've held that doll. I mean, I spent a lot of
I
time with that doll when Ed was alive.
when I first went to the Paracon in Gettysburg, my
Hmm.
God, I can feel the energy and my whole body start tingling. I'm like,
Yeah,
I told my dad that I said, Dad, we gotta get away from this doll. I can actually feel it.
right. You don't
Like,
want to give these things recognition. Ed used to tell me all the time, don't give it any recognition. Well, that's how this all started with the two
mhm,
young nurses with the doll. The doll was given to one of the nurses by her mother as a gift, birthday gift. But they gave the doll a lot of recognition. They bought dresses for it. They bought jewelry for it. They would sit it at the table when they had their meals. They would give it a lot of recognition and treated it like it was a human being.
mhm,
Well, then one day the doll's sitting there and the doll's arms levitated up onto the table. Now, this scared them, of course, but it more so intrigued them. And they said, well, so and so at work is a psychic. Let's have her come over and do a seance. Bad idea. Not a good
mhm,
idea at
Right.
all. Well, the psychic picked up that there was a little girl named Annabelle, probably 6 or 7 years old, that lived in the area that was, I guess, killed in a car accident outside the home. So
mhm,
what they thought was that the spirit of this little girl was inside that doll. Well, listen, God would not allow a human spirit to inhabit an inanimate object. All right.
mhm.
So right off the bat, you know that if there's something to this doll and there's something attached to that doll, it's got to be dark and negative and possibly demonic. I don't like that word much. It gets thrown
Yeah.
around too loosely. People throw it up on their YouTube channels to get likes and views and all that, but demonic activity, guys, is very, very rare, and possession
Less
is
than one
rarer
percent.
still. Yeah, a lot less. Yeah, it's very rare. And what I do when I travel around the country, colleges and universities, I do a lot of public libraries and private events. I have a whole section on divination that I talk about, and I talk about Ouija boards, and I talk about the case behind the movie The Exorcist. Everyone's
Mhm.
heard of that movie, and just about everybody has seen that movie. But does everyone really know the story behind it? That all started with a Ouija board, you know. And the Annabelle doll didn't
Yeah,
start
the
with a Ouija
woman
board, but the
did the woman
seance is the
actually
same thing. What's that?
did the woman actually play with the Ouija board or
Well, as far as I know, now listen, guys, I was only about 2 or 3 years old.
mhm,
This case was in 1970, 71.
mhm,
As far as I know, no, but they used to have seances and they were trying to conjure. All right. Basically, playing with a Ouija board and a seance are the same thing. Just with a seance, you don't have the board.
mhm,
You're conjuring things, or you're trying to make contact with the other side, or necromancy, as they're called. Summoning the dead. Past souls. And the thing is, usually your past loved one, now they may come through. If you go to a
mhm.
medium, a psychic medium, I know a lot of gifted people that could do this, but that's a gift. If you get a
Like
message from
chip
the other side
coffee?
from a past loved one, yeah, that's a gift. All right. And they have
Mhm,
that ability to be that conduit between the other side and the physical world and the spiritual world. However, someone that's untrained and uneducated or poorly educated, they get all excited and it's like, oh God, we got a case, let's load up the mystery machine and head out to this house. And I tell them, I said, listen, these people that called you or emailed you, I said, they really think that they have an issue. They're not lying, they're not making it up in most cases. I said, but psychosomatically, they believe truly that they have an issue. All right. They're looking at you as the paranormal expert, if you will. Okay. But how many times have I received a call or an email saying, I had ABC Paranormal out here. They said I had a portal to hell up in my bedroom and they ran out of my house because they were in over their heads. Now they made the situation 100 times worse. And I go in there and I'll say, and I have to talk them back off the ledge. Now, you ever hear the term you can't put the stuff back in the horse, right? And I'll say, listen, you don't have a demon here. Well, why did they tell me? I said, because they don't know what they're talking about. All right. And I say that not to offend anyone. And I hope your listeners, no one's offended. But, try to make sure you're properly educated. People ask me all the time, Joe, how can I get involved in the paranormal? I said, well, find find a team or a person that can help guide you and educate you. All right, but do your research on that team. You know, you can't just watch all these TV shows or YouTube channels.
You
and
have
think
to make
they're
sure.
Ghostbusters.
Yep,
Crazy.
you have to make sure they're like legit people.
So you made two good points, sir, Joe. So I had a case, kind of like you said. It wasn't my case. I had this lady that contacted me on my team's page. She wasn't even contacting me for help. She was just posting a video that I showed. And she's like, that happens at my house all the time. And I'm like, have you ever had anybody come and investigate or try to help you? She's like, oh, yeah. She's like, this team, I'm not going to mention the team. I'm not doing that. She's like, this guy, and the thing that's bad is I actually knew the guy that she called out. We were acquaintances. I won't say friends, but acquaintances. And she's like, he came to my house and told me that I had two portals that couldn't be closed and two demons that couldn't be made to leave. I'm like, no. And this was an 83-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. I was like, give me a few minutes. I was like, call me personally. I was like, instead of doing all this typing on the computer, I was like, give me a call. So yeah. Education is very important. And as far as like Ouija boards and that kind of stuff, any equipment really, to me at least, a Ouija board, if used properly, is a piece of equipment. If not used properly, it can be a portal. So with any equipment that you use, like I got a whole tool chest of equipment, but you have to know how to use the equipment. You have to know the false positive it gives. You have to know how to use it properly. You have to that's another thing that you have to educate yourself on. You have to educate yourself on the equipment. Because, like, example, just like a REM pod. So your REM pod is probably like one of the simplest pieces of equipment that we use nowadays. With a REM pod, you can't set a REM pod on a metal table or a metal chair because you're going to get forced reactions. You have to know that stuff.
Well, when I educate people about EMF detectors and things like that, I say, well, if you want to get a really good, proper baseline, ask the homeowner, can you turn the power off in the house? Pull the main switch. Don't you do it. Let them do it. Just said, pull the switch for 20 minutes. You're not going to spoil any food in the freezer or the fridge. But you got to understand, I tell people, I say, where do we live? I said, we live on planet Earth. Well, the Earth is just one big magnet. Okay? Matter of fact, it's the Earth's magnetic field that protects us from the sun's radiation. I said, so, just because you got a REM pod sitting on the bed and it's been quiet for 3 hours and all of a sudden it starts to scream, doesn't mean a ghost just sat down on the bed. I said, but you have, you have to investigate that. You have to research that and say, okay, debunk it. I don't like that word, but let's use it for sake of argument. What caused that to go off? So now you turn the power off, you take all your phones and electronic devices other than your EMF and put it out in the car. Get rid of it. You got to remove it from the situation. But not a lot of people do that. Their equipment starts to go off, or they have these cat balls that start lighting up and they look really pretty. And they all look at each other with these terrified faces that, oh my God, it's going off. Oh my God, there's a ghost here. There's a demon here. And I sit there and I'm like, oh my God, it drives me crazy because, it's like, I know a lot of it is done for show and for their YouTube channels and to get likes and followers. And what's the ultimate goal here, guys? Money, to make money. Okay.
Yeah. Not me.
Not me. This is a vocation. This is a vocation. It's not an occupation. When I help people, and I'm sure you guys do the same, I don't charge a penny to help people. All right. Where I make money is through books or speaking engagements and things like that, just like Ed and Lorraine did. And we never charge to help people. And anybody that does, to me, is committing fraud, if you ask me that.
I tell people all the time.
Paranormal go in there and they charge. No, I don't agree with that.
I tell people all the time, if a team wants to charge you, you probably need to look for a different team because there's plenty of legit teams that would do it for free. Probably better teams because I don't charge. So let's move on to Damien's question because we're actually getting a lot of questions here. Sure. So I want to try to get to it. So Damien has about 3 questions, but this is the one I decided to ask because I like it best. How many hauntings do you think are manifested by the owner's own psyche and not by actual entity or misconstruction or other? So, yeah, so
I believe
psychosomatic is a lot.
Self-manifest these things. Okay, the mind is a very powerful thing. You know, the same thing we use the term pareidolia. I mean, if you're laying on a nice summer day, you lay down in the grass, you look up at the cloud formation, you stare at those clouds long enough, you're going to see Mickey Mouse or SpongeBob. All right. So a lot of these things, and it all depends, like I said, psychosomatic. It's in your head. If you're watching these TV shows and these YouTube channels, it's already up here. So the seed has been planted. All right. I asked my audience, I said, how many people here has ever watched the movie The Exorcist at 2 o'clock in the morning in the dark all by yourself? And most people are like, oh, no, I wouldn't do that. I said, well, then you watch a scary movie like that. And then, you know, all of a sudden it's time to go to bed. You turn the lights off and you hear noises. You're like, everybody started looking around. I'm like, well, you always want to look for a rational, natural explanation for things. Don't take the nuclear option and immediately jump to the supernatural. All right. There is a methodology to this. You have to, you know, dot your I's, cross your T's, check the boxes. All right. I've been on cases where people heard scratching. Oh, I got a demon. I'm getting scratching. And you find out that there's this family of squirrels living in the attic or something. But a lot of people don't take the time to do that. Or they don't want to. They'll just get that evidence. And in their mind, they want it to be demonic or they want it to be paranormal. And then they just throw it up. You know, and that's not right. You know, and
Right.
you're misleading people. You know, but yes, self-manifesting, I believe that happens an awful lot in this work. People can self-manifest.
Yeah, so going back to what you said earlier, the book, like you said, I don't particularly like that word, but it is thrown around a lot in our field. But I try to debunk, try to disprove anything before I look at it as evidence. So, you know, like, especially like you said, like EMFs and all that stuff. But the best EMF I've ever got, one of the places we investigate a lot, matter of fact, it's actually where I take my new people to train. It's an abandoned hospital. It's been abandoned since 1988.
Okay.
So, you know, it's completely gutted. And I actually got, like, EMF readings over 100 there. Mm-hmm. So that's, you know, that you can't really just dismiss that because there's nothing else to cause it. I'm not saying it's paranormal. I'm just saying it's interesting. So our next statement kind of question, I'm going to make an investigator's place to remove a spirit from a place unless asked to do so. So this is kind of an interesting statement question to me. So obviously, if you're doing a residential investigation, obviously you've been called there to help remove the spirit. You don't really remove the spirit. You just help the spirit move on. And but this is a question I've discussed with quite a few people actually. So if you're like investigating a historical place, for lack of a better term, and you know, and you have to sign your waivers and all this stuff, and of course most of the waivers say you can't cross over the spirits, whatever. But what if the spirit tells you it wants to leave? What do you think our part is there? Do you think our part is to just leave the spirit there, or if we know it wants to leave, is there our moral obligation to help?
I've told people, and this happens a lot with. I'll give an example. Many years ago, I'm going back 25 years ago. I was invited to do an investigation and a talk at a restaurant, an alleged haunted restaurant in Connecticut. And it was supposed to be a very low key, just my friend and I, along with the owner and maybe a couple of members of his staff. Well, I show up and there's a big sandwich board sign out in front of the restaurant. Oh, Joe Franke's going to be here, conduct an investigation. And I'm like, what are you doing? This isn't a game. Well, at the end of the night, when he locked up and you know all the customers went home, the guy must have had 30 or 40 people there. They're all friends and coworkers and stuff. And I said, what do you want me to do here? And he said, oh, I don't want you to get rid of anything because that's his cash cow. I said, no, that's not what I do. If I find a spirit, I do a lot what I call spirit rescue. Okay. If a spirit is wandering aimlessly and needs assistance and needs help crossing over or finding their way, I'm bound. I have a moral obligation, like you just mentioned. All right. I don't play games like that. And I've actually got upset with people that says, oh, Joe, I don't want you to get rid of it. I just wanted you to verify that something was here. Now, if I've conducted my investigation properly, I don't even let it get that far. Like you said, the first thing is a phone call. Or these days we could do a Zoom call or something like that. Talk to the family. Talk to all the parties involved, whether it be a friend, neighbor, long lost cousin, whoever had experiences in the home. But I'm going to tell them up front. I said, if I find a spirit there that is in need of help, I am bound to help that spirit. All right. So if you think that I'm going to come over and do a dog and pony show for you, that ain't happening. I learned way back, 30 plus years ago. But yes, I agree with you. I am bound by a moral obligation to help the living and the dead. Okay, I'm there to help the living understand what's going on. But if I find a spirit that's in need or it's confused and it needs help, I'm going to do everything in my power to help.
Right. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Why did that person just call you down and you don't want to? I honestly, what am I hearing?
The guy, the owner of the restaurant, that was his cash cow because he had a haunted restaurant. And, he's like, well, if you get rid of the spirit, no one's going to come here anymore. I'm like, dude, that's not what I do. I got in a heated exchange with him. Like I said, I'm going back 25 plus years ago. And the restaurant still exists. It's been through many owners since then. But the spirits, I believe, are not there all the time. They come in visitation. It was part of the Underground Railroad. I mean, there's a bunch of spirits that come and go. They're not there all the time. They don't hang out there. But I told them, I said, I'm not just going to come and validate that there's something here, and or the same thing with someone's private residence. Oh, I don't want you to get rid of it. I think it's cool that. I said, well, look, I said, it's not the way to look at it. I mean, you're turning this into some kind of game. If there's a spirit that wants to come in visitation, I said, it has its own free will, just as it did in life. You cannot control or infect your free will over theirs. I said, and you better treat it with respect, him or her, because, these ghost apparitions were once human.
Right.
But if
and I tell people all the time, you just touched on it, Joe. I tell people all the time, like you said, we can't impose our free will on it. And what I've came to believe in my experience and, talking to other people, kind of like you said, the spirits, if they're still here, they either choose to be or they're confused. I mean, spirits can actually leave whenever they want to. We can't, so that's the reason I said, if one comes to me and says, I want to cross over, I'm like, I'm going to help you, because morally, that's the way it should be. I'm not worried about that location's money flow. I'm worried about that spirit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. I mean, there may be many reasons why a spirit comes in visitation, or they might believe that they're not worthy to pass over into the light. They may have unfinished work. They may be scared. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll ask a loved one that's passed to come and pull them over. Help them pass over. I said, look, go on into the light. It's a much better place where you are than where you are now. But they have their own free will. If they choose to stay here and remain earthbound, they can do that.
It's their choice. Yeah.
It is their choice.
Yeah.
And we cannot, impose our will on them and tell them what to do. I've had people do that, and I've pulled them aside and said, cut it out.
Right. It's all about respect. You got to respect the location, the client, I hate that term, the family, the spirit, everything. I tell people all the time, I was like, if you really think about it, when we go to an investigation, we're actually invading on their space, because to the spirit, that's their house, and we're invading on their privacy. So we have to be. So anyway, moving back to the demonic talk, Bob here says you don't need a demonic spirit to wreak havoc. Bad people make bad spirits. I say all the time the way I say it. People might take offense to the way I say it, and I apologize. But I think the way I say it hammers home the point. If you were a dickhead in life, you're going to be a dickhead as a spirit. So
I say it all the time. I said the same thing. I said a dickhead, I say asshole. If you were an asshole, miserable SOB when you were alive, you may be a miserable SOB when you're dead. I mean, I just had a case back in April, I remember, where we were called in, and there was a few spirits there were being held against their will by this negative spirit. Now, it wasn't a demonic spirit. It was just a nasty old son of a bitch. Excuse my French. And he was putting the fear of God into these other spirits, and he would not let them cross. So I went in there with a good friend of mine who's a very gifted psychic, and I said, "Let me take care of this SOB. You help these other spirits pass over." And they went on into the light. And I said, "You do not have the right." And I was chastising the hell out of them. I said, "But I want to help you too." I said, "I'm not angry with you." I said, "I just want you to understand, you cannot impose your will and keep them against theirs." I said, "They want to go on and be in a better place, but I want you to as well." So we were able to have, I guess the guy lost his son when his son was about 11 years old. And he was just very bitter, very angry. So we had his son come over and pulled him over. And he was just in tears, basically. He collapsed. And every soul can be helped. Okay? Even if you're the most miserable SOB, if you ask for forgiveness and you really, truly want that forgiveness, you will be forgiven. God's never going to say, you were a piece of shit your whole life and I'm not going to help you. No, it doesn't work that way. But whoever that was, Bob, you're absolutely right. If you're a miserable SOB in life, you can wreak havoc. However, like I said before, they cannot inhabit dolls. So these people that says, "Oh yeah, I've got this doll, I got a bunch of dolls around my house that every one of them has a human spirit attached to it." No, a human spirit can manipulate an object. It could shut a door. It could move a doll. It could do a lot of that stuff. But it can't jump inside a doll and start walking around like Chucky. It doesn't.
You mean that's not a true story?
No, I mean, this is what I mean by education. It all comes back to education. It's like if you're properly educated and understand this. Some people refuse to be educated because they want to believe what they want to believe. And for those people, I just say, look, we can agree to disagree and still be friends. I'm not a hater. I don't hate anybody. And I don't have anybody that hates me that I know of. I said, but, you're entitled to your opinion.
I got nothing but love and respect, Joe. So, let's discuss.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's discuss the religious angle that we've talked about a little bit. So, you were talking about how God, if you ask for forgiveness, He's going to forgive anything. Yeah, there's actually only one biblically unforgivable sin, and that's blasphemy of the Spirit, which is a fancy way of saying not believing in God. So, but what I find interesting is, and I got Damon's Christian up because we're going to ask that here in a second. But what I find interesting is, a lot of people. So, as we all know, I was born and raised and still live in the not only in the Bible Belt, but I live in the heart of the Bible Belt here in Western Kentucky. And so I am one of the ones that have the gift of being a clairvoyant, whatever title you want to give me. I've always been able to see and communicate with them. Ever since I was 5. That's the earliest memory I have, and it was talking to a spirit. So growing up here a lot, I was told, especially as a kid and a teenager, I was told that I was going to go to hell and I must worship the devil because I have this gift. So, with that being said, I don't guess I consider myself a religious man, but I do go to church. I have a relationship with God and all that stuff, and that's what it's really about. So, with that being said, like we said earlier, I've educated myself. I actually have a Bible degree from Louisville Bible College and all that stuff. The Bible verse everybody tries to use against against everybody is from Ezekiel, and the translation is, the King James Version translation is, do not talk to undead spirits of the undead, because you don't know if they're good or evil. But the actual Greek translation, if you take the literal Greek translation, the translation changes, and the actual translation is, do not talk to the spirits of the undead, because unless you are trained, because you do not know if they're good or evil. So the trained in the actual Greek changes the whole context of the Bible verse. So that goes to be educated. I went through that whole thing just to show education is important, because now when people come to me, I'm like, let's actually discuss this Bible verse. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, education is very important.
Well,
so Damien's
question. This is with anything. You can't fly an airplane unless you go get educated on how to be a pilot. You got to know what you're doing. But one big thing your first question, one big difference is egos. Okay. One thing that I tell everyone in our foundation is, like, be kind, be gentle, and be humble. All right. I said, if anybody here has an ego, I will personally remove you from this foundation. All right. You have to be humble. All right. Leave your ego at the door. Nowadays, you Google paranormal, and you've got all these groups, vying for contention. Who wants to be on top of the Google search? Who cares? It doesn't matter where you are in the Google search. If you don't know what you're doing, okay, you're not going to be able to help anyone. You can actually make the situation worse. And not only for them, for the family or the person you're trying to help, but for yourself. Okay. I've had many people say, Joe, we got a problem. What'd you do? Well, my friends and I were out in the cemetery with a Ouija board the other night, and now something followed us home, and I'm like, oh my God. First of all, what the heck are you doing out in a cemetery in the middle of the night playing with a Ouija board? I said, there's only one meaning for that. You're trying to summon something. I said, and if you were successful at it, God bless you. Now you're screwed. Now you've got what we call an attachment. I said, and you can't just shake it off. I said, now you're going to have, look, we can spend all night talking about this stuff, but I think from a Roman Catholic point of view, because I was born and raised Roman Catholic. Ed and Lorraine Warren were very Roman Catholic, and I was taught in that way. But I've helped people of all faiths, people with no faith. We all have to believe in something, So it's not a cookie cutter approach.
Right, and my demon
have faith. What's that?
My demonology training came from the old Catholic Church, so I take my demonology education, it comes from a Catholic background. So Damien, let me say this statement, then we're gonna move on to another question by Damien. I do have my team's Facebook page, and of course the podcast page, and then I do event planning now too. But as far as like YouTube videos, we do have them on my team. We're not very good at doing them. Like we may do one every 5 investigations, but any video we do is just like an historical locations. We never do a video at a residential case, because when you're at a residential place, you're there to help the people. Facebook, YouTube, none of that should be of any concern. The only concern we have is that person. So Damien says, you feel like you can turn a troubled entity or a dark entity into a good one if it doesn't want to cross.
Well, again, these entities have free will. If they don't want to cross over, there's nothing you could do that's going to make them cross over. We can encourage them to. We could try to bring over loved ones to pull them across. I don't know if Damien's referring to demonic entity or just a miserable SOB. But like the story I was just telling you, we were successful in having a loved one come and pull this gentleman across, and his whole demeanor changed from a miserable SOB to like an old softie. His heart just melted, and but that's all on him or on her, on the spirit. Something dark and sinister. These demonic entities, they're on a very short leash. they can only do what God allows them to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all right. They're on a very short leash, and they must answer to their creator. So I will say, it's not I Joe Franke command you. It's no I Joe Franke. By the blood of Jesus Christ. Because God gave us all of us, every one of us, the ability to cast out demons in His name. Okay, and I'll say, go to the foot. I command you, or Jesus commands you to go to the foot of the cross and accept your fate. Okay, I don't play games with these things. You don't sit there and have a conversation with these things. You know, but that, again, I said that's very rare. And if I never have another demonic case the rest of my life, I will be happy because I've had my butt kicked. Okay, I've been punched, scratched, bitten, burned. I was 350 pounds. I was picked up and thrown across the room like I was nothing. Okay, Casper the Friendly Ghost cannot do that. All right, I was thrown across the room. I left a hole in the wall with my right shoulder when I was about 24 years old. It was a long time ago. But people said, "Well, Joe, weren't you scared?" I was terrified. I said, "I don't have a big S on the front of my shirt. I don't have a big red cape." I said, "I'm a mortal human being." However, I said, "I've always said this: faith and fear cannot coexist." And what I mean by that is if you are strong in your faith and deeply rooted in your faith, you got nothing to fear because turn around and look who's in your corner. All right? I always say faith
Right.
and fear they can't coexist.
Sarah wants to know if you're planning to do a workshop in the East Coast, Joe. They said they would love to attend.
It's a good question. I am pondering the idea in 2025 of doing some classes and some courses. Just to teach people to share my knowledge with people. I do a lot of lecturing, and all I'm doing is sharing the knowledge that I've gathered over 40 years, the knowledge that Ed and Lorraine Warren poured into me. Again, I don't know everything. I don't profess to know everything. Matter of fact, every day I get up, I'm still learning. Okay, I don't care if you've done this for 4 months or 40 years. We can learn from one another. All right, there is no
My,
paranormal expert, in my opinion.
my saying of that, Joe, and I say this all the time, is in the paranormal field, you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. And I am still green and growing, even 32 years
So am
into
I.
this.
So am I.
So,
We're never. There are so many questions that we won't have the answers to until we pass on someday. If you
right,
believe that. If you believe that.
right. I believe that. And, my goal is to leave the paranormal field better than it was when I got in it. I'm
Same.
not about ego. I don't care about making money on TV. I don't care about any of that stuff. I will say this, though, and I've only told a few people this. My team is actually going to get to be on a TV episode in 2025, and I almost said no to it, Joe, because I don't. I want people. I want to be identified as an investigator. I don't want to be identified as. So, but then I got to thinking, there's so much fake out there. It'd be nice to have some real out there. So that's the reason I
Well,
decided to go ahead and do it.
I'll be honest with you. I was offered the show Ghost Hunters back in 2001, 2002. I turned it down. I said, I'm not here to be on TV. Matter of fact, I had a really good friend of mine once told me I have a face for radio.
Me too.
I have a face for radio. I'm not looking to be on television. I was on the show Sightings many, like 35 years ago. You remember that show? Sightings with Tim White? But HBO contacted me some years ago. They wanted to do a show on exorcisms, and I said, "Well, good luck with that because you're not going to find real content to fill, a weekly show." I said because exorcisms although they do exist, they're very rare. Usually it could be explained away as some kind of psychosis or schizophrenia or some kind of other psychological condition. However, that being said, you can have a psychological condition and also have a demonic condition. Those can coexist because you're a wounded, what I call that's a soul wound or a wounded soul because these things like there's my bitch because you're the weakest link. I'm not necessarily a target because I'm not afraid of it. Okay, it's when I go into a place where there's a demonic force, it will hide from me, not because it's scared of me. I'm just a mortal man, all right. But it's afraid that I'm going to find out its identity. Okay, that's why when the exorcist will ask three questions: tell me your name, how did you get in, how did you enter, and when are you leaving? That's it. Those three questions. All right. Tell me your name. Well, if you can find out the name of this demonic force that you're dealing with, now you've got power over it. Because now okay, now I know who you are or what you are, not who you are, what you are. Now I know what I'm dealing with, and that's all part of the education piece. You can't fight
Right.
something that's not tangible. You can't see it or touch it or feel it or smell it. A mortal human being cannot fight something like that. These things have the wisdom of the ages and strength beyond comprehension. They'll tear you apart if God allowed it.
Exactly, and like you said, going back to the educated and the religious angle, you know, the word demon gets thrown out around a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of times when you say demon, you get more likes on your Facebook page or whatever. So let me say demon. But what people have to understand, like you said, demons, they were never human. They're a non-human entity. So if you go back to the Bible, when the devil Lucifer, when Lucifer rose against God, half the angels were became demons, and that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a supernatural, non-human entity. So we can't fight it. Like you said, I've never been. Obviously, I'm not a priest or anything. So when I've attended exorcisms, it's always been there to help say the prayer. Kind of like you, but I can't make him leave. You can't make him leave. Bishop Law can't make him leave. It's in the name of Jesus that they have to leave. Because he's more powerful than they are. It's like Chris. Chris has trouble believing in demons because he's never experienced it. I hope he never has to experience it.
I hope he doesn't. I hope you don't, Chris. You don't
I've been in many abandoned hospitals and institutions. Not one thing I ever encounter anything demonic in the hospital. I'm like, why are they talking? What are they talking about?
Yeah, they don't occupy physical space or time. Right?
They occupy people, and
they have to be summoned. They have to be conjured. And I hope people understand what I mean when I say that. By some form of divination, whether it be Ouija boards, seances, idolatry, anything that you put above God is against the first commandment, and it's an abomination to him. Okay? So, and what do I mean by that? Well, it could be money, it could be power, it could be sex. And I tell people, look, and I'm not trying to be funny, but pornography is an addiction. Any addiction, alcoholic addiction, drug addiction, sexual addiction, any form of abuse, physical, sexual abuse. When you add these things of your own free will, when you start messing with this stuff, you're opening those doorways. And that's a big part of my talk when I try to educate the public or like I said, my target audience now, and I'm going to be focused on in 2025, is I want to gather these investigators, these researchers, but I want people that are like-minded, like us, people that want to help people, not just because they want to have 10 million followers. That's BS. All right.
Right.
Look, God bless you. You're going out. You're a millionaire. But you know what? My dad used to tell me. He goes, you know what? He goes, I got to wake up every morning, look in the mirror, and I got to like what I see. He goes, my integrity is not for sale. And it's not.
So Alan says, and it's kind of like we've already said, he said he found out a demonic force very rarely gives you his name, but because when he does, you have power over him. And yeah, that's the key. That's why you ask him your name, because if you can get it, that's the first step at getting him to
Yeah, but I'm not going to ask him because
so let me ask you this question, because
the exorcist can do that. Only the exorcist should be directing anything, prayers, demands in Jesus' name. So the exorcist is the conduit from which God works. I can do prayers of deliverance, which are a layman's form of exorcism, and they're very powerful prayers. but any one of us can do that. So the difference between
Right.
deliverance and exorcism is deliverance prayers are prayers prayed for the individual, the afflicted individual. Exorcism prayers, the ritual Romanum, is directed at the demon, and only an exorcist can do that. And that's another
Right.
part of education. People need to know the difference. Otherwise, they're going to be in big trouble. Big trouble.
Yeah, like I said earlier, when I go to the two exorcisms that I've attended, Bishop Long he was the exorcist, so he was the one communicating with. I was just there to pray. Yeah, he's the actual exorcist. Matter of fact, he has the most exorcists around him. So Alan says oppression, depression, and position, or the three stages. Correct him if he's wrong. No, that's
close.
That's what I've always been taught.
Some people say there's 3 stages. Some people say there's 4. I actually say there's 5, and I'll explain what I mean. The first stage really starts out as vexation. Anybody know what I mean by vexation? It's an annoyance. It's a disturbance. All right, you're sitting there. I got my bottle of soda here, and all of a sudden it goes flying across the room. They're like, okay, what was all that about? The door opens and slams or whatever. It happens once or twice, and it never happens again. That's what we call vexation. It's an annoyance. All right. Well, when those annoyances become more prevalent and almost an everyday occurrence, now it turns into infestation. From infestation, we go to obsession. From obsession, it could go to oppression, where things step up and they get physical. And then the final stage is possession. But that doesn't mean that if you've got a couple of stages that you're going to have the full-blown possession. That's very, very rare. So close on that, but I say infestation, obsession, oppression, and possession. I kind of throw vexation in there. So, there's 4 or 5 stages, depending on who you ask, I guess.
Well, see, I've always heard just 3, so that's very informative. I agree with that, Joe. I mean, if you think about it, those really are the 5 levels. I mean, it almost sounds like a marriage sometimes, though. But so the next question is, we're actually almost out of time. We're actually over time, but I still got some questions, so I'm going to keep going. So my next question is, it's my show, I can do that. My next question is, what is your one piece of advice you'd give to a new investigator?
Well, I keep going back to this, but if I, new investigators, if I got someone sitting in front of me or a group sitting in front of me, I said, look, make sure that this is something you really want to do. All right. So for me, it was a vocation, a calling. All right. I was chosen to do this work. All right. It's not an occupation. All right. So make sure that you're in it for the right reason. If you're in it just to become rich and famous, go away. I don't want to be bothered. That's not what I'm here for. All right. But then you need to find someone, not necessarily me, or I've got a lot of colleagues, many, many people like yourself that are trained and that can help that person. Find someone that has that training and that knowledge. Okay. None of us knows everything, but collectively we're a powerhouse, so find someone that has that training and that background and those years of experience, and ask them if they'll take you under their wing. All right. Learn the right way. Okay. Another thing is all this equipment that you buy today, and I'm going to get a lot of haters probably, but I don't use a lot of this stuff. You don't need it. I have an old Gauss meter for my EMF. It's probably 35 years old from Texas Instruments. I love this thing. All right. But just because I'm getting pegs, I had one house that's pegging at like 80 to 100, like you said earlier. Well, they found out that there was some unshielded wiring behind the stove. All right. But once you shut the main off, that all goes away because there's no juice flowing, So educate yourself on the equipment. All right. I don't like cat balls. Look, they're cute. I want to buy a box of them and put them on my Christmas tree. Every time I walk by, the vibration will make them all go off. I don't like a lot of this, and I don't want to get any hate mail on this, but all you're really doing by buying this equipment is making other people rich. Okay.
The thing is, Joe, and I got a lot of fancy equipment. I don't got all of it, but I got some of it. But I also understand how it works, and I understand. But the thing everybody has to realize is none of this equipment, for the most part, was originally developed for
Right.
the field.
And that's what I mean.
So
that's what I mean.
yeah, so it originally has some other purpose, and somebody smarter than I am decided to adapt it to the field, and some of it works, some of it don't. Like you said, some of it's just pretty lights and stuff. I'm not a big K2 person. I'm not a big cat ball person. I'm not, So yeah, so if you're going to use equipment, you need to know how it works, and you need to look for natural reasoning for it to go off before you look at the scientific stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even call myself an investigator. I call myself a researcher, because the investigation part of it is part of the research. So you need to research the home or the property, the family, the history of the home. I've got a case I've been working on for 17 years. The house was built in 1771. It's 253 years old, and this house is steeped in history. There's been murders and suicides in and around the house. So it's not just the house itself, it's the whole property around it. Okay? But I've been studying this for 17 years. I've been working with this family and helping them, and we've been very successful. However, we have not been able to eradicate everything. There's a lot of spirits there that are elementals, nature spirits, things like that.
Yeah.
But I think they're there for good reason. They're not bothering anybody. The family tells me that they see these things and all of a sudden they'll just disappear. And I said, well, do they say anything? Do they do anything? Do they harm anybody? No. I said, then ignore them. You can peacefully coexist. I said, maybe they're there to look out for you. I think they are. They're watching over the family. It's almost like this family, the house comes alive for them because the house has become part of them, because they've been there so long. So I said, as long as nothing's happening negatively. Now, back in 2013, 2012, we did have the house exorcised by Bishop Robert McKenna. So the house did have a demonic entity there, and I actually have video footage of that, which I show when I lecture. So, too much to go into here, but,
See, I have a problem with people don't do their research very well.
Yeah.
Because they just want to go in there and experience it for themselves. But I can understand that, but it's still good to look into it first before going.
You got to do the whole job. You can't do the job, leave it half done or half-assed. But most people, I'm not saying everybody, most people aren't willing to do that. I said, you guys know John Zaffis?
Mm-hmm.
John Zaffis is a very good friend of mine. I've known John for 40 years. He's Ed Warren's nephew. Okay. I had lunch with John a couple months ago. I'm at his house and we're talking. I said, John, the problem with these investigators today, or so-called investigators, they're not willing to put in the 40 years or the 32 years, or in John's case, over 50 years to be recognized for their work. People just want to go out and buy a computer, a bunch of toys, and a camera and a video camera, and go out to these old abandoned places. I'm more scared for their personal safety. All right, you might fall through a rotted floorboard, or you might get attacked by a homeless person that might be living in this old shanty or this old hospital.
Right.
I'd be more worried about their physical safety than I am worried about their spiritual safety. There's so much that goes into this work, but people are not willing to do that work. They want instant fame and notoriety and gratification, and they want to turn that into cash. And look, I can't stop them. It's not illegal to do that, but I think it's immoral. I think it's immoral to do that.
You mean people make money doing this? I lose money.
Not me.
I lose money big time.
Yes, my wife. When I help somebody, a lot of the families that we help, they can't even afford to pay your expenses. And, if I got to fly to Oklahoma and it costs an $800 round trip ticket, I'm not going to say, well, if you can't pay for my plane fare, I'm not coming. All right.
Right.
I'll figure out a way.
I'm the same way. Now, I try to, like, residential cases, those cases where we help people, I try to stay within an hour and a half drive just because of finances. But like you said, that doesn't mean if somebody calls me from, let's say, Louisville, because that's 3 hours away. If somebody calls me from Louisville and says, I need your help, I'm not going to tell them no. I might, I got friends in Louisville that I trust. So I might say, well, let me call Joe and let's see if Joe can help you. And if Joe can't help him, but yeah, I'm not going to turn anybody down. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
What did John Zappa say about people being out there and being famous lately? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, John, pretty much we agree on a lot of stuff. I mean, you mentioned earlier OG, original gangster. I guess that stands for. I
Hmm.
say old guy stands for old guy. All right. When I started this work, I was 18 years old. All right. So, and the funny thing about it is, Ed and Lorraine Warren were the same age or about the same age that I am now.
Hmm.
Okay. When I started, so for me, it's come full circle. All right. But John agrees with me. John and I, we keep to ourselves. We don't get involved in the drama. I get all kinds of emails and messenger stuff. And, oh, Joe, what do you think about this? What do you think about the Conjuring houses? I have an opinion, but I'm keeping it to myself. All right.
So
I'm not getting involved in
so
the drama.
so Sarah says Anna Lorraine Warren are superheroes for them. They follow and study their works, etc. They bought all their books. I'm the same way. I mean, like I said, I started actually researching. I'm going to start using that word, Joe, if that's okay. I decided I'm going to be a paranormal researcher now. So I started researching when I was 12. We've already been over. I've been told that I was going to go to hell. I got called to the office in middle school because I was checking out books on parapsychology and all this stuff. I don't know why I got, but anyway. So Ed's book was the first one I ever read. So, but my question is, I know you said you try to stay away from the controversy, but I'm going to bring this question out anyway, just because I want to hear your opinion because I trust your opinion as a colleague and a friend, and you were close to Ed and Lorraine, so to me, you're the best person to ask this question. So, why do you think there's a certain minority in the field lately who has decided that the Warrens were nothing but con artists and opportunists? Where do you think that came from?
It's a very good question, and that upsets me when people do that because I knew these people. I knew them intimately. They were family to me. They were like grandparents to me. The people that are saying these things, though, never met the Warrens, never knew them. All right. I don't know why people have so much hate in their heart and say they were charlatans and they were just in it for the money or to write another book. You know what? I've stood shoulder to shoulder with these people. I've laughed. I've cried with them. I've cried with families. All right. I would say to those people, and I've said it, I've sent private messages to people that have put negative comments on Facebook. I said, if you want to know about Ed and Lorraine Warren, here's my phone number. Call me. I've had not one person take me up on it yet because they know, look, the Warrens are gone now. God rest their soul. I said, but I'm still here. You insult Ed and Lorraine Warren, you might as well just be saying it to me. All right? I said, look, I will answer any question that I can within reason about Ed and Lorraine Warren. But the things that they're being accused of, I never saw it. Those were not the people that I knew. Okay? And I knew them very, very well. But the people that are making these allegations, and these claims, and the thing about Amityville was a hoax. Amityville was not a hoax. The people that started the hoax rumor were the people that didn't make any money. So they're all butthurt about it. So they started rumor, oh, you're full of this, you're full of crap, this is a lie. Look, people can say whatever they want. They have free will to do that, freedom of speech. They can do that. It hurts me. It hurts me deeply that these people, my mentors, who I love very dearly, my wife and I, they're gone now. They can't defend themselves. So I've picked up that cross and I will bear it and I will defend them. And if someone shows me some kind of overwhelming tangible evidence that I'm wrong, I'll admit that I'm wrong, but I haven't seen that yet. I
Ed
don't know
and
why people say
Lorraine,
what
Ed
they
and
say.
Lorraine did. Ed and Lorraine did some wild cases.
Yeah, they did.
Wild.
They did.
Like I watched the documentary and some of the cases they went through. My God, they're like very like you know.
Well, come to one of my lectures, gents, and I'll tell you some of the cases that I've worked on. I've got a case now. I call it my Amityville, a very bad
Hmm.
case I've been working on for years. Okay, we
So
probably all have those cases, but
yeah,
because they're so, I mean, they're older cases and they sound so fantastical. People are like, oh, you're full of crap. You're lying. You're making this up. Let
and
them
then of course the
believe whatever they want
Hollywood
to.
angle on it too. I think that's what makes
Which
it
is stupid.
baddest. So
Well,
let me.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the Warrens years ago had the director Ridley Scott was going to do a movie on their life many, many years ago. This is when Ed was still alive. You know, Ed had a major stroke in 2001 and was completely incapacitated. He passed away in 2006. So I basically lost him 23 years ago, you know, even though he died 18 years ago. But there's a lot of haters out there. People are there's a lot of jealousy, a lot of hatred. You know, people say let's have paranormal or para unity. I'm like, this is where I just I just shake my head and I say I don't want to get involved
So
in the drama. If we can't all get along and help each other for the common good of helping somebody, then I don't want anything to do with it because you're not in it for the right reason. You're in it to get famous or make money or gain likes or whatever or get on TV. I don't care about television. I don't want to be on TV. I just want to do my job is to help people and to educate people, and that's it.
so yeah. So and I had to ask that question. I didn't mean anything harm towards you or won't make you
Oh no,
angry, but I
you're not
but
making me angry.
so but everything. Unfortunately, I never got to meet In the Rain, even though I consider her my first role models in the field. But everybody I talked to, even Steve Gonzalez, from Tats, he's talking about they were his idols too, and he was talking to me about he got to meet them one time. They were doing some kind of presentation when he was just a teenager or whatever, and he went and he actually got to go to a cemetery. Ed in the Rain took a select few people for the lecture to the cemetery, and how he was impressed about how they were always willing to answer questions for people learning, and that's what they are to me.
Well, one of the most common questions I get about the Warrens is what were they like? All right, to me, they weren't the world famous Warrens. To me, they were Graham and Grant. Okay, so I tell people, look, if you want to know about the Warrens, if you want to hear about my paranormal journey, I discuss how I got started. And the Warrens were a huge part of my life back then, and they still are. But the people the naysayers and the haters, the people that talk negatively about them, just about every one of those people never met them in their life. They didn't know what they were as people and the time and the tears they shed and the money they spent helping people. I mean, they helped me. I wouldn't be where I am today if I had never met them. I'm a better man today for having known them. And if someone doesn't agree with that, hey, call me. I haven't had one person take me up on it yet.
As much as I hate to,
a lot of people back then actually call them crooks and all that sorts of stuff.
Con artist is the best one.
Yeah.
Let them believe whatever they want. I can't change that. You can't fix stupid.
But
whatever makes them sleep better at night.
Once I first watched their documentary, I'm like, is this actually real? Real cases I'm watching? Like, they're crazy.
Yeah, most of the cases you're probably referring to were well before my time.
Yeah.
But my mentors, the people that taught me, wouldn't lie to me. Why would they lie to me? I know about the Amityville case intimately because it was explained to me by the people that worked the case. Why would they lie to me? I was one of their students. Right. Why would they lie to me?
Mm-hmm.
I would never believe in my heart of hearts that they would do that. Now, could I be wrong? I guess so. But, like I said, the haters, the people that spread these vicious rumors are like, well, I read it on the internet. Well, then it must be true then. If you read it on the internet, like I said, they didn't know them. I mean, Lorraine's been gone now almost 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And most people say, like you said, Ken, you didn't have the honor of ever getting to meet them. So why pass judgment on someone? And I'm not talking about you, but why would somebody pass judgment on someone they never met? They just watched a bunch of videos and said, it's bullshit. I don't believe in that stuff. They're lying. They're making this up just for another book or whatever. Well, the Warrens had to make money from their books and from their lectures because they never charged people to help them. They're flying all over the world helping people their whole life. And they're not charging people to do that. So people can believe whatever they want. People want to learn about the Warrens. They really have a question they want answered. Contact me. I'll do the best I can to educate you.
The England one they did was crazy.
The poltergeist case?
Yeah.
So we got we're about 20 minutes over, but I got a question. It's more of a psychiatrical question that I was asked earlier, and we got busy, and the guy just mentioned it again. Virgil asked. So, like I said, it's more of a psychiatrical question, but we'll get everybody's opinion on it. So he says, may I ask what you think, what your thoughts are about the psychology of the Joker and Batman dynamic? I recognize that it may seem like a rather trivial question, but hear me out. Joker, Arthur Fleck, is a highly antisocial, paranormal personality disorder who is a satanic and narcissist who is borderline psychotic at times. He emerged from a background of abuse and a normal relationship with what appears to be mother who has no parental skills and no boundary recognition. His nemesis is Batman. So,
yeah, I mean, we're talking about fictional characters, but there are real people out there. There are real people out there that have psychotic disorders and stuff like that. And it may not be paranormal at all. It may be something, either a physical or psychological affliction that they have. I mean, obviously, watching these kind of things and these horror films and stuff like that doesn't help them any, and they could be very narcissistic. That's very true. Many of them are. You can't correct them. They're never wrong. Or it's you ever know somebody that it's always somebody else's fault. It's never my fault, kind of a thing. There's plenty of people out there like that in this field too, and it kind of disgusts me because, I'm, like I said, I'm in this field to help people and to help educate people, but I'm also going to add one to that, and that's to defend the Warren name and their legacy. Okay, and if someone has any kind of evidence that I don't know about, call me. You're going to have to convince me otherwise, and that's a monumental task.
Well, I'm definitely going to call you, but it's not about the Warren reputation. I want to talk to you about
you call me anytime.
I want to talk to you about joining my Paracon in September. I thought I had a full load, but your name was mentioned to me before because Larissa, your manager, is speaking at my Paracon along with Santiago Calero is going to be there, and I thought I had a full lineup, but I would love to have you if you're interested in joining me. We'll talk about that later. So we're way over. We're way over, Joe. So let's end the show with this. Let everybody know what you have going on right now, how to contact you if they need to contact you, and just say bye to everybody.
Sure. Well, first of all, gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been an honor. I really appreciate you having me on. Again, but if anybody wants to contact me, you can get me through the Warren Legacy Foundation. You can go to warrenlegacyfoundation.com, or my email is jfranke@warrenlegacy.com. So it's JFRANKE@warrenlegacy.com, or through my personal Facebook page. I'm working on a website now. My adult daughters are helping me with that. Probably be joefranke.com or something, where I'm going to put a lot of the stuff. All my events are going to go on there. I pretty much finished my events for 2024 because now we're only a week or so away from Thanksgiving and then Christmas. But I will be starting up again. I do private organizations. I do colleges, universities. I do a lot of public library speaking. So if you want to look, I usually post those things on my Facebook page. And I also share them on the the Warren Legacy Foundation also has a Facebook page as well. So if anybody wants to get a hold of me, you can just send me an instant message through Facebook, and I promise you I will get back to you. Give me a couple of days, but my wife and I are up in Maine vacationing this weekend, so I won't be home probably until Tuesday. But again, thank you for having me on. I hope I didn't offend anybody by some of the things I say, but take it from an old veteran. I know a little bit about what I'm talking about after 40 years.
Well, Joe, I thank you for being on the show, and I'm going to put you on next year's rotation. And I'm going to have you back on sometime in 2025 too. This has been a really good episode.
Thank you, gentlemen. Contact me about September. Yeah, please. I'd be interested.
I definitely will. I wanted to put you on there. Like, it kind of snowballed on me. Like, we actually, next year will be our third time doing it, and we moved to 2 days now. So we got Rob and Sarah from Get Honda is going to be there. Carlito, Santiago Calero is going to be there. Caitlin, the Ghost Hunter, is going to be there. Gavin and Paula Kelly is going to be there. Yeah, we got like we got a bunch of people, and of course we have a lot of local teams too. Because I don't really care about celebrity status, so we got the local team coming too. So I'll contact about it. Thank you for being on there, Chris. You got anything to add before?
No. I
just wanted to say one more thing, if I could. I'm sorry to interject.
Go ahead, Joe.
One thing that I want people to understand about me is that I have a very unique history, and no one has the history that I have with the Warrens, with the work that I've been doing. I mean, there are people that have similar paths, but I don't consider myself a celebrity by any means. And I'm a very humble guy, and I try to stay that way. But if I would say to come out and listen to what I have to say, I guarantee you'd probably think it's worth your while. Because everything I talk about is absolutely true. It's stuff that either I experienced with the Warrens or on my own through all the years I've been doing this work on my own. So it's a very unique history that I have. I hope you have me out and have me talk to your audience.
To be honest, Joe, we've been talking, for a while, but now actually talking to you pretty much face to face, I just feel a bond with you. I just feel like we're family already. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
I do too. Thank you. I feel it.
But we were way over. I don't want to.
Normal hobby.
I don't want to get canceled, so I'm going to end this now. Okay. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Chris. And I will talk to everybody later.
Bye bye.